Day to everybody watching this um, on Memorial Day. I want to make this in honor of all the men and women who have fought for us to have the freedoms we still have here in this country, and talk about something that I see flying around on the internet a lot as it heavily pertains to homesteading because so many people have the goal out there to start their own homestead, to farm, and it feels out of reach for a lot of people. And I want to be an example of how you can, number one, do it on a small piece of property, and number two, how you can do it on a lower income. Because we became homeowners, and I like to credit my husband. He made me a homeowner before I even turned 30 years old. But I also was a homemaker. So he was the reason, though, I became a homeowner. It was his hard work. He paid off credit card debt, he saved up the down payment. And I really believe that it's the number one way. I mean, I don't believe it, I know it. It's the number one way that people climb up the economic ladder in our country, just average working people. He was working in a warehouse when we bought our first home, and this was almost 10 years ago, but still. It is a part of the agenda of this great wealth transfer to get people to be poor and have there be no middle class, just poor and really elite wealthy people. This great wealth transfer that has been taking place for several years now, it is part of the agenda of it to tell people to try to talk them out of home ownership, in my opinion. And this is not for people who are truly happy renting. I know there's going to be situations always where renting is the best option. So I'm no way, shape, or form saying everybody needs to be a homeowner. This is for people who are discouraged or feel discouraged because of certain things flying around. I want to reiterate it. I believe it's part of the agenda to transfer wealth, so we go from a country where the middle class was the biggest class to go, where it's just mostly poor people. Then the elite, wealthiest people, like all the people, they're actually, I know people that make over 50,000 a year technically getting a tax cut, but anyways, and I that bill hasn't passed your house yet, but we're sitting at a time where the greatest wealth transfer ever is taking place, and I really do believe the past few decades have people have talked about, "Don't oh, you can't repair it, you can't afford repairs, and, like, you pay property taxes, so you never really own your home." Well, I wanna say this, unless you live in a teepee on public land and you move every 3 days, you pay property taxes. It's just a question of whether or not you pay your own or somebody else's. If you are a renter, you are paying property taxes. Do you really think that the people renting to you are, like, paying anything for you because you're paying everything and then some so they can profit? And there's nothing wrong with that if that is what you want. I am here to say this because we were the people that were told, "Oh, like, becoming a homeowner is this something that you shouldn't take on as somebody that doesn't have a lot of money," when I think it's kind of the opposite. If you don't have a lot of money, you should be putting your money into a home that is gaining equity because you don't have a lot of money. And we don't have the ability to just snap our fingers and come up with a lump sum of money. Like the people that are telling you, it's always the wealthy people that own multiple properties that are telling the rest of us why we shouldn't own properties. It's like it's obviously profitable for you because you own property after property after property, and you're sitting there telling us, "Oh, you might not be able to make a repair." But not being able to make repairs can actually make you learn something, especially now that we have YouTube and the internet. I mean, even back in the day, you had libraries. You and Home Depot is very helpful when it comes to home repairs. They even have classes with some things. And my husband, he's working on a toilet back home right now. I am house sitting right now, and it being in a neighborhood where you have ownership is a different kind of community, and I think every American deserves to feel that, and if that's what you want, if you wanna be a renter your whole life, that's absolutely fine. I am not trying to down it, I'm not trying to say that's ignorant or dumb, it's quite the opposite. It's that people are told that they aren't good enough to become homeowners because they don't have a lot of money, and that is insane. Hi, Mr. Carey. How are you doing this weekend? Happy Memorial Day. Oh, thank you, Cool Dip. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. That's really sweet of you. I appreciate it. And hi, Martin. How are you? How is everybody? So, once again, I want to repeat this. I don't think everybody needs to be homeowners. I don't think that at all. I just think that people are so discouraged, and there's a general sense of nihilism in our country about like the general future. And I would probably feel that way too if I was much younger because things just seem so difficult and out of reach right now. But another thing I wanted to talk about, which should probably be a separate live, is trailers, double wides. Modular homes are like a step up from trailers and double wides manufacture, but like they aren't the depreciating assets that they once were because of the lack of housing, and, like, there is a lot of affordable options still left. I wouldn't personally invest in a brand new double wide or like some of these modular homes. You might as well go get a nice brick ranch if you're gonna spend, $280,000 on a modular home. That's how I feel about it, but at the same time, there's still plenty of like, our double wide has increased in value over a few years, like most homes have in this country, because there's such a lack of housing. And at first, I didn't want to buy it, and I thought it wasn't a good decision to invest in a double wide because of all the same things that you hear when you talk about trailers and double wides. But if, it's on a permanent foundation, especially if it's on some land and you've got utilities, if it's not insanely priced, you will get some equity built into it. I don't see how people can even like, we couldn't rent what we own, and I don't think that makes sense. I don't think it's right that that's even a thing that takes place in our country right now, but it's just the truth. Like, on my income and my husband's income, I don't think we would qualify to rent what our house would probably be to rent it each month. Thank you, Mr. Carey. Peter. Oh, thank you, Peter. Do I think good-looking people have it easier in life? I have heard that at least on TikTok, that's definitely a thing. TikTok has, like, this beauty algorithm, and they do seem to favor people with fair skin, which I'm not surprised. That's what I've heard. Now, I don't know so much about YouTube. I'd like to think that it's my personality too, but, um, hey, Taciturn, thank you so much. I love you too. I really appreciate everybody that tunes in and comments, and, like, I know I'm really all over the place with my content lately. I was actually trying to edit a video about my dogs because I am gonna start gardening in a week, maybe 2. It might be 2 whole more weeks, and we're gonna be doing a lot more stuff outside. But, like, this topic and topics like this are really important to me because I do believe like, Martin asked me if I believed in the Matrix. Thank you, Mr. Carey, and I was just like, I I do believe that our reality is, like, so warped, and there's people living in almost separate realities, and a lot of it is because of the internet and different ideologies. A time when we have the ability to be more connected than ever, we're actually becoming lonelier and more isolated. And one reason why I love homesteading and the community around that so much is because we all need to eat. We all need to eat better. We could all benefit from eating better. And all of that other stuff falls away. The, men and women, even the misogynistic stuff I bring up, like all of that doesn't matter when you're working on being self sustainable and growing food together, right? And even in communities, when you go to auctions and there's the Mennonites and the Amish people and the farmers, like everybody is on the same level in that certain way that they all like to grow food. And that's something that I think, in my opinion, one of the only things that can really save us. And that doesn't mean you yourself have to be a farmer or a gardener, but you can support it. Um, oh, Taciturn. No, I don't answer questions like that because if you also watch some of my other content, you'd see part of the downfall of our society is people being over SE-actualized and things like that. Blue Skies, Vienna Skunk, what's with all the PRICKs in chat today? I don't know. It's a holiday. I guess a lot of people are off work. A lot of trolls don't have to work or go to school today. Mr. Carey, yeah, I'm a married man, so can't flirt with your husband. Um, just joking. Okay. I was like, did I read that right? Oh, okay. So everybody's paying property taxes. Did I get that point across in the first 10 minutes? It's just whether or not your name's slept on. And I don't want people to think that I'm saying that like being a renter is a horrible thing, but I don't want people to think that they can never ever have the goal of becoming a homeowner. I saw 8 acres for $8,000. It was in, I forget, it started with an R. It was in Kentucky, in the western part of Kentucky. $8,000 for 8 acres. Yes, it had roadside access. Most properties here have access. That is something you have to watch for when you're looking for land, especially I've seen these small like campsites in Colorado that are $1,000, $2,000 for just like a campsite. You might not have road access to it, but like I don't think I've ever seen that in a property in Kentucky in years of looking, except for one time. However, I'm serious, and it wasn't an auction because often auctions will have like a very low price, and you click on the listing, and then they're like, "This is the auction starting price." I despise that. I think it should be illegal. But this is 8 acres for $8,000. It was wooded, yes. Especially if you know how to use a chainsaw, that should be fine. You might be able to pay Like, if you log that, if it hasn't been logged in a while, you might, like, pay half of that back easily. Ignore them. I will, blue skies. Mr. Carey is laughing. You guys have it easier in the USA to buy land cheap, very difficult in the UK. Yeah, it's really easy here in Kentucky, and there's not a lot of jobs in the places where it's the cheapest, and there is a lot of toxicity from farmland, unfortunately, and mountaintop blasting, a form of coal mining. So there are reasons, and there's lots of flood plains. Kentucky has a lot of water, a lot of man-made lakes, but just we are second to Alaska in the most navigable waterways, length of waterways. That's such a hard statistic to say. We are second to Alaska in length of navigable waterways of any state. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of properties that are cheap that are in floodplains that have a cheap house on it, and you're like, "Oh, why is this so cheap?" Because it's in a 10 out of 10 floodplain, and that's very unfortunate, but that's something to watch out for too. But thank you, Mr. Carey. I really appreciate it. Mr. Carey said, "Please don't forget to subscribe and like if you haven't." I really, really appreciate that. Blue skies, I work with somebody who is from the UK, actually. He moved here like 35 years ago, though. But yeah, it's, and then our healthcare here is absolute mess. Like our healthcare, it's like it's just scary what our healthcare has become. So there's good and bad sides to every pros and cons to everywhere, right? But it is important to keep in mind if your goal is to be a homeowner, if you want to, you can invest in cheap. I know not everybody gets tax returns. We rely a lot on our tax returns, like a down payment for a vehicle or, medical bills because we have children. I know not everybody gets a big tax return from children like we do. However, any little chunk of change you can save, and $8,000 for land, you're probably going to have to buy that outright. You might be able to finance it. It's not out of the realm of possibilities, but it's going to be a lot harder to finance than like an $8,000 car, unfortunately. But there are lots of possibilities you could appreciate. Yeah, appreciate that. Invest in that land any way you can. Infrastructure, trailers, double wides, if you bought one for a good deal and then you add to the land and infrastructure, if it didn't have any outbuildings, you add outbuildings to it. If I bought a cheap home on land, I would concentrate more on everything going on around the home. Of course, improve anything in the home that needs to be improved, but I wouldn't put a lot of money into a cheap home. And that's actually what our plans are now. And property taxes are very cheap. If you don't live in an expensive city, I'm sure it's cheaper than renting overall. I'm sure it's cheaper than not having to pay repairs most of the time. You always hear horror stories, people that have to get, their water line replaced, their main water line, their roof replaced. We went through that. We had a roof replaced in our first home, and fortunately, the homeowner's insurance did pay for it. But if you are financing, which most of us are, they make you get homeowners insurance, and you will have help with the major repairs. So many people are scared out of home ownership, and I believe it's part of the agenda to create the biggest wealth transfer in history. We're in the middle of it right now. And I wanted to say that that was my message for today. And I wanted to hop on here because I'm house sitting and I've been doing a lot of resting, and I wanted to get on live and say hi to you guys. Tornadoes, yeah, unfortunately, we're like the new tornado alley here in central Kentucky, and that's very unfortunate. And I would highly recommend getting a place that has a basement. Although I've seen, plenty of people. I don't. It's just so sad what's going on with the weather, year-round weather warfare, right? Right. And I believe a lot of it's manipulated. And I'm not saying I know this for sure, but I've heard things about lithium in North Carolina and Eastern Kentucky. I wouldn't be surprised. I was just like looking out the window at chemtrails right now. I'm in Louisville now. And I went to Heine Brothers. If any of you are familiar with Heine Brothers coffee, it's my favorite coffee in the world, and I haven't had it in a year or two. So I treated myself to that, which is like a really big treat for me. My farm in Portugal got hit by dew attack in 2017. I'm so sorry to hear that. I got 75% third degree burns. Oh no. That sounds terrible. 6-week coma. Was it a medically induced coma, and are you okay now? I mean, I'm sure you still have long-term effects from that, but are you doing much better? Uh And if you wanna give any more details, I'd be interested in that, but I totally believe that that's part of why they are making our farmlands so toxic here, and allegedly, I do believe in persistent contrails being something that is intentionally done, and they are putting things into our atmosphere to manipulate the weather, and it could be for a good thing, like, it could be because they think it's a good thing, like, they think they're stopping the heating up of the earth, you know what I mean? But I don't think it is a good thing to play God and manipulate the weather. And Blue Sky said it was an induced coma, given 2 hours to live, and I'm fine now, thanks, nothing long term. Oh, good for you, I'm so glad there's nothing long term, that's amazing, 75% 3rd degree. Oh my gosh, I've gotten a few bad burns, I couldn't imagine 75% of my body being burnt, that would just be horrible. A year in hospital and rehab, spraying is daily here in UK now, it's been admitted as a program after 20 years. Yes, and there's things that they've said, like, there was even a law put into place in Tennessee, the state south of me, talking about how they illegalized it, and then, there's still people that don't wanna admit, like, in the documents that talk about how they do this, they do cloud seeding, they know how to make it rain, they know how to manipulate the weather. They have art pole, huge, I don't have to tell you about it, huge places, just their whole intention is to manipulate weather, and it's affecting us. And in my first few YouTube videos, I brought up climate change because I do believe climate change is taking place. It's obvious as somebody who's gardened for like 8 years and spent a lot of time how drastic the weather is changing. But that doesn't mean that I'm Greta Thunberg, you know? And it was funny, like I brought that up and somebody right away was like, just immediately wrote me off as like this left wing liberal snowflake that thinks everybody should be taxed over emissions or something. It's like either or. No, like the climate is totally changing. Why exactly? I don't know. And I do believe it could be something that could be natural. Like we had ice ages, mini ice ages, and the time isn't it Thames River was just frozen over like in the 1700s or something. Weird things happen with weather often. But I wouldn't doubt it if a lot of it was man-made or manipulated as well. But I totally believe in that, and that's one reason why we were tired of Southern Indiana. Excuse me, we were like in between Louisville and Indianapolis and just constant, like the weather, the air quality was always bad. It was always in the red and it's constant chemtrails. Groundwater was contaminated where we lived. And like I said, there's plenty of toxicity going on around here. And that is one reason why the land is so cheap. It's also because of lack of opportunity and there's not that many jobs. So that's another big reason. And if you do work from home, the internet isn't that great in a lot of rural areas. However, they're improving that. So I'm glad that you're doing a lot better, Blue Skies, Vienna. If you're still here now, do you have a farm anymore? You said your farm was attacked, but did you keep it in operation at all, or do you have a new one? And like, when I drove to the coffee shop today, I saw so many beautiful neighborhoods because I haven't really been around this area that much. There's so many people with big, beautiful, lush yards, and just 10% of us that had the ability to grow food grew some food. That would be like, we need to bring back victory gardens. During, was it World War I or II, they had victory gardens, and that was actually a government program where people came to your house and helped you learn how to garden if you didn't know, because they knew back then it was so vital for people to be able to produce for themselves. And Blue Sky said, "Farm is still there, but I'm in UK." Oh, yeah, you said that was in Portugal. Oh, okay. Yeah. I hope that you get to grow things now. If that's what you were doing, I just assumed your farm was growing things. Were you, uh I don't know if you were growing food or had livestock or both. I am itching to garden. I actually brought some seeds with me because there's a few empty flower excuse me, flower boxes here. I was thinking about planting as a surprise. Um, oh, you were growing marijuana? Oh, wow, okay. They just legalized growing hemp here in Kentucky a few years ago. And your wife has a garden going, Mr. Carey? That's nice. I can't wait to get mine going. I'll still have time to grow everything, but it's so disappointing waiting a whole month, missing a whole month off of my growing season. But things are coming up. I actually had a few volunteer tomatoes, and then my dogs trampled them, which is my fault for not transplanting them, but I had some tomatoes pop up in a weird place and flowers popping up in places, which is one neat thing about gardening. You never know where the volunteers will show up. And if you get a late start, you might be surprised at all the things that are still popping up. So, does anybody have anything to say about the property tax thing before I sign off? Because I know I say this a lot when I go live, but I'm like by myself all day. I think I will go live again later tonight. Probably around like 8, I'm guessing. But yes, I'm all about herbal and plant medicine. And it, if everybody that could grew something, even if it was just one thing, even if each person that had a little bit of land concentrated on one crop, one herb, one kind of medicine, one kind of mushroom, if that's your thing, like, there would be so like, what if we each had fresh food stands at the end of each street that was like, you come and give what you have and take what you want, and more community CSAs going like that. So, anyways, I'm getting off the property taxes subject. This is just something I see in comment sections all the time. 15, 20 years ago, we had people, once again, who were wealthy property owners, our in-laws, telling us why we shouldn't buy a house because it's this big, scary thing. You just don't know enough. You just don't have enough money. Oh, and then you don't really own it because you're always paying property taxes. Like everybody is always paying somebody's property taxes, unless, like I said, you live in a TP on government land, which is ours, but, then you have to move, like, every 30 days. I don't think most people live like that. Oh, maybe Native Americans don't have to pay property taxes like they shouldn't. I plant a lot of herbs. Right now, I've got marshmallow plants going, Martin, and that's one of my favorite herbs. I am not planting marijuana, if that's what you mean. I wish I could, but I'm not this year. Maybe one year. I when we had that 23 acres, I looked into growing hemp, and then I found out it's like you have to basically let anybody from the government in your home at any time that can, like, look through your home at any time, and you can't have cookies, and, that's not gonna fly for us. So, it's really crazy how they treat hemp, which is an amazing plant. It chelates the soil. It makes the soil better and healthier and takes bad things out of contaminated soil. It grows as fast or faster than bamboo. You can make stronger paper, stronger rope, stronger everything with it. And the only reason why it's been vilified was because a man made patent for nylon, basically. One of the biggest reasons, because they patented nylon. But anyways, Blue Sky said then they will get evicted. Oh, what do you I'm sorry, I'm not following along. So want to I was thinking about trying to schedule lives for the rest of my break at 8 p.m. I'm just throwing this out there. If any, I don't want to make anybody like show up on YouTube and get disappointed. I'm not on here at 8 p.m., but I'm just throwing that out there. That's my goal. I'm going to try to, when I do live from now on, do it at 8 p.m. And if any of you want to try to catch that, I'm going to try to have a subject, but you know how I am. I kind of like am all over the place. And I think that will be a really nice time of day to do, except for the bugs. But that will be a really nice time of day to like start watching the garden here in a few weeks. We're gonna be out in the garden like every day. You'll see every day. I remember when I had my first garden, my husband complaining about like not ever seeing me. He's like, "You're always outside. Come inside." Oh, well, I hope that maybe you can catch the replay or, knowing me, I'll still be all over the place whenever. But I hope you guys have a great day and I'll see you soon. And thank you for coming and watching.